you look up, you see neighbors, you are wrong. The light entering your eye right now departed its source before your species existed. What you perceive as proximity is a fossil record, a delayed broadcast from structures that may no longer occupy the coordinates where you believe them to be. The night sky is not a window. It is a photograph of a crime scene, taken long before the crime. Between you and the nearest star, 4.24 light-years of absolute nothing. Between you and the nearest galaxy, 2.5 million light-years of expanding, accelerating void. And that void is not static. It is not neutral. It is under pressure. It is moving outward at velocities that compound, not linearly, but exponentially, driven by a force that has no confirmed source, no confirmed nature, and no confirmed ceiling. We have given it a name, because naming things makes us feel less helpless. We call it dark energy. It constitutes 68.3% of the total energy content of the observable universe. It does not emit light. It does not reflect light. It does not interact with matter in any way that our instruments can detect directly. We infer its existence entirely from its effect, the expansion of space, accelerating year over year in every direction simultaneously. This is not a mystery. A mystery implies the possibility of resolution. This is a structural feature. The universe was engineered, if we may use such a word without implying intent, to isolate its contents. Every galaxy, every star, every atom of matter that has ever existed is being driven away from every other atom at an increasing rate. The mechanism does not pause, it does not negotiate, it executes. What you are about to observe is not a hypothesis. It is not a speculative scenario for a distant civilization to worry about. It is a timeline, a schedule, a protocol that has already begun and will not stop until the concept of stopping no longer has a physical substrate in which to occur. Begin the autopsy. There are 4 forces that hold matter together. You know them as gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. They have different ranges, different magnitudes, different operational scales. Together, they constitute the entire structural vocabulary of physical reality. They are the reason atoms cohere. They are the reason molecules form. They are the reason you are not a dispersed cloud of elementary particles floating in void. Dark energy is not a 5th force. It is not a force at all in the conventional sense. It is a property of space-time itself, a pressure inherent to the vacuum. Its density does not dilute as the universe expands. This is the critical feature. Everything else, matter, radiation, even some proposed exotic substances, becomes less dense as space expands because the same amount of material is spread across a larger volume. Dark energy does not behave this way. Its density remains constant, or in the specific cosmological model relevant to the Big Rip scenario, it increases. It is called phantom energy. Its equation of state parameter, denoted W, is less than -1. This is not a rounding error. This is a death sentence written in the language of differential geometry. What this means in practical terms, the expansive pressure of the vacuum grows stronger over time, not weaker. Gravity, which operates through the attractive pull of mass, is working against a force whose intensity is on an upward trajectory with no known asymptote. Gravity is not losing a fair fight. It is losing a fight where the opponent gains strength with every passing second, while gravity's operational range becomes less and less relevant as the distances involved grow past the point at which its reach can function. The Big Rip is the terminal phase of this competition. It is the moment, precisely calculable given our current estimates of dark energy density and rate of increase, when expansion velocity overrides every binding force in the universe in sequence, largest scale to smallest scale, until no binding force anywhere continues to function. The universe does not explode, it does not collapse, it is methodically disassembled, structure by structure, with the cold efficiency of a protocol that does not know it is executing. T-minus 60 million years. The first structure to fail is the largest, the cosmic web, the vast filamentary scaffolding of matter that spans hundreds of millions of light years, the greatest architectural achievement of gravitational accumulation over 13.8 billion years, begins to lose coherence approximately 60 million years before the final rip. This is not a catastrophic event. There is no observable explosion. There is no signal. The filaments simply stretch beyond the threshold at which their self-gravity can maintain integrity, and they dissolve into an increasingly homogeneous, increasingly empty distribution of matter that no longer clusters, no longer coalesces, no longer builds. At this stage, the gravitational binding of galaxy clusters fails. The local group, the gravitational system that contains the Milky Way, Andromeda, and approximately 54 other smaller galaxies, loses structural cohesion. The galaxies do not collide, they do not merge, they separate. Expansion carries them apart at velocities that exceed the speed of light, not because matter moves faster than light, but because the space between them grows faster than light can cross it. They pass beyond each other's observational horizon. They become causally disconnected. They might as well not exist relative to each other, because no information, no signal, no photon can ever again make the crossing. The night sky, from the surface of any hypothetical surviving planet, goes permanently, irrevocably black. Not dark, black. The distinction is precise. Dark implies the possibility of adjustment, of aperture, of sensitivity. Black is structural. It means there is nothing to detect, regardless of instrument capability, because no photon from any external source will ever arrive again. The observable universe is now a single galaxy, then a portion of a galaxy. Then, as expansion continues, even the stars within the galaxy begin to recede beyond visibility. We are quarantined, not by disease, not by war, by physics, by the cold, indifferent arithmetic of a universe that has decided, if decisions can be structural, that isolation is the default state and proximity was always the temporary aberration. T-minus 3 months. 3 months before terminal rip, the expansion of space has progressed to the point where it now operates efficiently at the scale of solar systems. The gravitational well of the Sun, which has maintained orbital coherence across 4.6 billion years, which has held 8 planets, trillions of smaller bodies, and a debris field of extraordinary complexity in stable geometry, is no longer sufficient to counteract the expansive pressure of the phantom energy permeating the local space-time metric. The outermost planets detach first, not explosively. There is no ejection event, no gravitational slingshot, no dramatic departure. The outer planets simply find themselves in a space-time that is expanding faster than the Sun's gravity can compensate. Their orbital velocities, calibrated to a gravitational field that has become functionally inadequate, carry them outward. They recede, they cool, they vanish into a darkness that is now absolute. There are no other stars. There has not been visible starlight from outside this system for millions of years. Earth follows. The mathematics of detachment are not dramatic. The orbital radius increases. The solar constant, the quantity of energy per square meter reaching the surface, diminishes. Temperatures fall below the threshold at which any process we recognize as chemistry can operate. The oceans, if any remain, freeze. The atmosphere, if any remains, settles as a thin layer of nitrogen and oxygen ice across the surface. The planet does not burn, it does not shatter, it drifts silently into absolute, freezing darkness, still intact, still whole, a perfect sphere of dead rock carrying the frozen remnants of 4 billion years of biological complexity, moving away from the only star it has ever known, into a void that contains nothing and will contain nothing forever. The sun, observed from the receding Earth, shrinks, a point, a smaller point, below the resolution of any optical instrument. Gone. T-minus 30 minutes. 30 minutes before terminal rip. The expansion of space, operating now at planetary scale, engages the electromagnetic force, the force responsible for the structural integrity of matter at all scales above the atomic nucleus. Rock is held together by electromagnetic bonds. Metal is held together by electromagnetic bonds. The crust of the Earth, the mantle, the iron-nickel core, all of these structures exist because the electromagnetic force has successfully countered the tendency of matter to disperse. That counterforce is now losing. There is no explosion. This is the detail most important to understand. Popular imagination demands a dramatic end. Fire, shockwaves, a blinding flash. The reality is the opposite. The end is quiet. The crust of the Earth develops fractures, not from tectonic stress, not from impact, but because the electromagnetic bonds between adjacent rock formations are insufficient to maintain coherence against a space-time that is now expanding at macroscopic scales in real time. The fractures spread. The crust separates. The rock does not shatter in the traditional sense. It disassociates. Each fragment now occupies its own small bubble of space that is expanding away from every adjacent bubble. There is no violence. There is no sound. There is nothing to carry sound. There is only silence and the slow, meticulous dissolution of a 1,274,262-kilometer diameter body of rock into a widening cloud of cooling, darkening rubble. The mantle follows the crust. The core follows the mantle. Each layer finds that its internal pressure, maintained by the weight of the material above it and the electromagnetic resistance of the material around it, is now subject to a space-time metric that is locally expanding faster than pressure can propagate. It dissolves outward, not with violence, with precision, like a structure whose load-bearing members are being individually and silently removed, each one finding itself suddenly unsupported, each one drifting away from its neighbors without the energy of collision or the drama of fracture. What remains is a dispersed cloud of macroscopic rubble, no longer a planet, no longer a coherent object of any kind, a statistical distribution of material that was, 30 minutes ago, a world. The autopsy is complete at the macroscopic level. What remains now is internal work. T-minus 10 to the minus 19th seconds. We are now operating at a timescale that has no human analog, 100 millionth of a billionth of a second before terminal rip. The expansion of space, which began its visible work on structures hundreds of millions of light-years across, has compressed its operational scale to the interior of individual atoms. The strong nuclear force, the most powerful binding force in nature, the force that holds protons and neutrons together in the nucleus of every atom in existence, is now being tested against a space-time metric that is expanding at subatomic distances in real time. First, molecular bonds fail. The covalent and ionic bonds that hold atoms into molecules, into water, into carbon compounds, into the organic chemistry that constitutes the physical substrate of everything that has ever been alive, snap. Not one by one, simultaneously, across every molecule in the dispersed rubble cloud that was once a planet. Atoms separate from their molecular partners. They do not fly apart with kinetic energy, they drift. Space expands between them. They are still in proximity in the cosmic sense, but the bond, the shared electron, The electrostatic attraction can no longer maintain itself across a space-time that is inserting new space between them faster than the electromagnetic force can reach across it. Then, the atoms themselves, the electrons occupying their orbitals, find that the space-time distance between themselves and the nucleus is expanding. The electromagnetic attraction that defines orbital mechanics, that gives atoms their size, their reactivity, their identity as elements, operates across a distance that is no longer fixed. The electron shells disperse. The nucleus is exposed. Protons and neutrons, bound by the strong nuclear force across a distance measured in femtometers, a million billionth of a meter, now face a space-time that is expanding even at that scale. The strong nuclear force fails. Protons and neutrons separate. Quarks, the subcomponents of protons and neutrons, bound by gluons in a force so strong that isolating a single quark requires energy sufficient to create new quark pairs, find themselves in a space-time where the gluon field cannot maintain confinement across the new distances being inserted between them. Everything is dismantled. You, as a physical object, as a pattern of matter, are dismantled. The carbon in your cells, the oxygen in the water that constituted 60% of your mass, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, every atom, every nucleus, every quark that was ever part of your physical structure is now a free, isolated particle, separated from every other particle by an expanding void that will grow henceforth without limit. You are not destroyed. You are disaggregated. The information is still present, theoretically, in the distribution of particles, but there is no longer any physical mechanism by which that information could be reconstructed, accessed, or read. You have been filed permanently in a format with no reader and no retrieval system. The Planck length, 1.616 times 10 to the negative 35 meters. Below this scale, the concept of space as a continuous geometric structure is believed to lose physical meaning. Quantum gravity, the unresolved theoretical framework at the intersection of general relativity and quantum mechanics, predicts that at this scale, space-time itself has a granular, probabilistic structure, a foam, a fluctuating geometry that does not permit the clean, smooth manifold of classical physics. T0 is the moment when the expansion of space, operating now at the Planck scale, breaches the threshold at which that foam can maintain any coherent topology. The distance between adjacent Planck scale units of spacetime becomes undefined, not large, not infinite, undefined. The mathematical framework that assigns coordinates, that permits the concept of between or adjacent, that gives physics a substrate in which to operate, this framework ceases to have physical instantiation. There is no bang, there is no crunch, there is no energy release. There is no observable event, because observation requires a spacetime in which signals can propagate, and that spacetime no longer exists. T0 is not an event that occurs in spacetime. It is the termination of spacetime as a functional construct. The universe, as a physical system with measurable properties and causal structure, ends, not with fire, not with cold, with a cancellation of the operating conditions that made physical events possible in the first place. The word after does not apply here. There is no after. Time, as a dimension, as a sequence, as the substrate in which after has meaning, is no longer defined. The question "what happens next?" is a category error. Next requires a timeline. There is no timeline. There is no thing. There is no nothing. There is not even the absence of something, because absence is a concept that requires a spatial context in which to be absent from. The conceptual vocabulary of existence has been revoked at its foundation. The protocol has executed. This is what the autopsy yields. This is the final diagnosis. The question, what remains after the Big Rip, has an answer, and the answer is worse than nothing. Nothing is a concept that requires a referent. It requires the potential for something against which it is defined. What remains after T0 is not nothing. What remains is a condition in which the question of presence or absence has no physical substrate in which to be asked. There is no space in which particles could be distributed. There is no time in which they could interact. There is no force to mediate contact. There is no concept of contact. Every quantum of matter and energy that was ever part of this universe, every proton, every electron, every photon that ever carried light from a star to an eye, exists in some abstract sense as a dimensionless singularity of information, with no mechanism of connection to any other singularity. Not separated by distance, separated by the absence of the framework that would give distance meaning. Not isolated by space, isolated by the non-existence of space itself. This is absolute mathematical isolation, not the isolation of a planet without neighbors, not the isolation of a species alone in the cosmos, the isolation of each individual particle from every other particle in a condition where the physics of interaction cannot occur, not because interaction is prevented, but because the arena in which prevention or permission could be operationalized no longer exists. No two things in what was once this universe will ever again be in the same place. They will never again be in different places. The concept of place has been executed along with everything else. Consider the present moment. Consider the fact that you are a temporary cluster of approximately 7 octillion atoms held in coherent configuration by 4 forces operating across distances that the universe is, at this moment, still small enough to maintain. You are a statistical fluctuation in a cosmos that has already scheduled your dismantlement. Every bond in your body is a provisional arrangement. Every atom in your structure is a component on temporary loan from a universe that will eventually recall it, disaggregate it, and file it in a condition of eternal, inviolable, absolute solitude. The stars you see tonight are receipts from a system that is already in the process of closing. The gravity holding this planet in its orbit is a force that has been given a deadline. The light reaching your eyes is the last communication from sources that are already in the frame of the universe's accounting beyond retrieval. You are not in danger. Danger implies a timeline in which intervention is possible. You are in a protocol. A protocol does not negotiate. It does not pause. It does not acknowledge the complexity or the beauty or the suffering of the data it processes. It simply executes at the pace its parameters specify until the execution is complete. We are temporary clusters of data. We exist in the interval between the protocol's initiation and its completion. We have given this interval a name. We call it the universe. It is more accurate to call it what it is, a waiting room. And the waiting is almost over.